All right, Mets fans, we are live. Give me all 1 second. I need to get my bearings straight. Usually I have a post-game intro that I do that you guys always see on the show with the Meet the Mets and all that stuff. I couldn't justify doing that right now for obvious reasons. I have so much to say, and I know I'm probably going to get a little dramatic here, so I would like to first warn everybody that's watching the live show or on replay, this is not going to be a positive discussion regarding the New York Mets. I don't know if you couldn't tell from the title being that it's a Mets post-game show rant that is on display here. And guys, look, I was in attendance for the first game of this series. Didn't do content afterwards or whatever. I really just want to enjoy the night, especially against the Nats. It doesn't feel like it's as adamant to do a show or anything like that. The Mets won the first game 7-3. Was a nice win for them. They got that 4-run inning as well, led by that Pete Alonso home run. Yesterday, I was out of town all day because it was my grandfather's 80th birthday, so spending the day with him. Saw that the Mets just absolutely faltered. I'm going to give you guys updates on Max Scherzer in today's show as well. And I was like, you know what? As long as the Mets have a valiant effort today, that'll dictate things. But for the Mets to get the absolute doors blown off of them for a second consecutive day, to give the Nationals their first series win at Citi Field since 2019. Yeah, I'm absolutely pissed to say that this series this weekend was an embarrassment for the first place New York Mets is the biggest understatement in the world. Thank you guys all so much for chiming in. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe. As always, folks, as we break down our raw reactions and truly rant, however you want to go about in the live chat, guys. This is not going to be a ridiculously long show or anything of that nature. I'll go 20 minutes to a half hour tops. Then I got to get out of here. I've had a busy weekend. It's Labor Day weekend. Happy Labor Day to you all. That is tomorrow. But I had to get out here and do this right now because I have so much to say on the Mets right now. And no, I do not believe that the sky is falling. However, what I do know is now the Mets only have a 1-game lead or about to. I don't know the stats of the Braves game because there's been a prolonged rain delay. Regardless, the Mets have some serious issues with their offense that we have known for the past month. It has stayed full apparent in this National Series, and they just looked like a team that simply did not show up to the plate one bit outside of Game 1. Even Game 1 with their runs, it was nice for them to get the runs, multiple runs in one inning in Game 1, but they didn't do anything that was crazy outlandish to me. This series was truly an eye-opener, and if you ask me, this is the worst series loss the Mets have had all year, and it couldn't come at a worse time for a Mets team. Now, granted, in the month of September, they have the easiest schedule on paper on baseball, but again, this is what I talked about with Anthony Recker, our latest podcast for Bleav in Queens. Check it out, guys, if you haven't already, about the Dodgers series win. And he said, himself, him being on teams that were lesser, they love to play spoiler, and more games are going to be more of a grind for the Mets than people seem to realize. But here's the thing in this series, folks. This wasn't even about it being a grind of a series. The Mets were 1-1 late into the game yesterday. Scherzer gets pulled. Adonis Medina comes in and proves that he does not belong on this roster right now since the roster call-up. He won't be on long once guys like McGill and Drew Smith return. However, the doors were blown open yesterday. I was pissed about yesterday's loss, but I was like, you know what? As long as the Mets bounce back today, we can live with it. It's a series win. No, the Mets continued the exact same anemic offensive ways that we've seen for quite a bit now. Talk about inconsistencies. This Mets team has only averaged 3 runs per game over their past 12 or so games, if I'm not mistaken, from what Gary said and the S&Y booth. And I don't know how much I'm going to rant here. I don't know how much I'm going to get hot-headed tomato face as I usually do. I'm just genuinely pissed off by this series. And I know it's one series. The sky isn't falling, but now you only have 1 game up. You're telling me, you are going to tell me, folks, that the Mets have only 1 game up on the Braves now, not because of the Dodgers series, but because of losing 2 or 3, outscored 14-2 in the final 2 games of the matchup against the effing Nationals. Are you joking? Seriously, like I wish that this was just a nightmare that I woke up from. I'm like, okay, it's fine. No, it's not fine. There is rightful criticism that deserves to be said here. I know every Mets fan feels the exact same way. I know we got Mets fans on the live show right now that are like, okay, the season's over. No, I'm never going to be one of those fans that say the season's over for a team that's 85 wins up, has been in first all year long, even when they've only been in first by half a game. But the point is that this is now in the final month of the season, facing absolute, let's say how it is, dog shit opponents, and the Mets are letting them walk all around them. Like, here's the thing. I don't know how the Mets are going to perform in Pittsburgh tomorrow. They better step up to the plate, because if they don't, it's going to be more rants. It's going to be exhausting. And it's going to be the demise of this club. Then you're going into Chicago. Chicago's been pesky. They had some good games against the Blue Jays not long ago. I mean, we don't know how these matchups are going to go, and that's the worst part. On paper, they look phenomenal, but anything can happen in baseball, and what the Mets did these past 24 hours is nothing short of pathetic. It's embarrassing to the fan base and quite literally to the team. You could tell. I don't know what it is with this team. What? Because you don't have a big atmosphere? Because you don't have sold-out crowds like you did against the Dodgers and against all these other big matchups this year that you just can't ride momentum? There is little to no excuses at all that you can make for this team to lose in the fashion that they lost in this series. And guys, we're going to deep dive what exactly happened in this game here shortly, but there isn't even a lot to deep dive. There's no highlights I'm giving you today. There's no Warriors top 5, none of that. It was an absolutely pathetic series, a weekend for Mets fans to forget. And truly, hopefully, for a Mets fan's sake, knowing that they're in Pittsburgh for like a 12:35 p.m. Eastern game for game 1. Why? I have no clue. I don't know why they're doing an early day game. I guess because it's Labor Day. I guess that makes somewhat sense. Regardless, though, if the Mets do not step up and make a statement against a Pittsburgh Pirates team, then we have some serious problems here. And again, you guys know me. I'm literally one of, if not the most optimistic fan you guys will ever meet. If you watch me all year, fans have been saying the sky's been falling for months on end when the Mets have made major impacts for this team for the better and have gone on a ride. Even when things were low earlier in the year, the Mets stayed afloat, and they still are afloat now in the first, but it's by a hair. And this is something now where we may very well see the Mets and the Braves teeter back and forth between who's in first and who's in not down the stretch if they do not get their act together and fast. So I'm going to address a donation here first, and then we'll go into breaking down this game for you guys, and then I'll see some comments, and I'm going to get out of here. Again, this is what frustrates me the most. This, again, is on paper the best time of year for you if you're a Mets fan, schedule-wise. The Mets have done phenomenal and have grinded out some of the hardest months that baseball has had to offer this year between injuries and matchups, and they have stayed afloat by upwards of 5 to even upwards of 10 games above 500 each of these months. The Mets won what? Like a 19-11 somewhere around there in the month of August? They have proven that they have continued to be a top dog, and everyone was riding high after that Dodgers series. How can you not be? But for this team to come out here now and do literally nothing but be piss poor, have absolutely god-awful shitty at-bats like they don't give a shit. Let's be honest here. The Mets had some bad luck earlier in this game. We're getting some ropers that were getting the gloves of the defenders. Nice catch by Robles on Lindor earlier in the game. But, I mean, the pop-ups late in the game. I mean, this is just the Mets wanted to fly out to Pittsburgh halfway through this one, folks, because they had nothing. They had nothing going against a Nationals rotation that is the worst in baseball. It is nothing short of pathetic what this team was able to do in this series. I'm grateful that the one game that I attended, they played well on Friday, but by God, I was expecting this at minimum to somewhat continue in games 2 and 3. It doesn't matter that Mad Max gets pulled yesterday. That blow-up should not have happened. Adonis Medina, you could argue, shouldn't even been in that spot. I can understand Buck a little bit there, considering that, yeah, it's 1-1 against the Nationals, but still tied ball game. We should still be grinding out these games no matter who you're facing. And the Mets, they have proven that they have a different mentality against clubs a lot of the times, depending on the atmosphere around them, depending on what the vibe is. They ride on momentum, which is great because that's what you need come playoff time. And big atmospheres, they step up. We've seen that time and time again. However, they have proven that they don't always step up when they need to, when it matters against teams, even in the division. The Nationals had 9 effing wins in the division entering this series, and they just gained 2. They got their first series win against the Mets. Oh, this was the second series the Mets have dropped all year in the division, in the NL East. The first one was against the Braves when they lost 3-4 to them in Atlanta. I'm disgusted. I'm fuming. I'm so pissed off by this. Look, the Mets can bounce back against the Pirates and all can be well, okay? Especially if hopefully the Braves can at minimum drop one game in their next series. But it's the point again that this was all set up on a platter to a T for you. This schedule has been aligned in the sense of we know you've been grinding out every single month this year for the most part, right? The Mets had one fairly easy month on the schedule this year outside of September. The Mets have had some tough matchups, and they've grinded through them, and have been the better team more often than not. So now that they're finally gifted something, or there's, say, a lack of pressure, they themselves show a lack of interest with their at-bats. And the pitching today, as awful as Cookie Carrasco was, this was a game that should have at least been close. At least been close, regardless of Cookie getting the doors blown off of him today. It was his first start back from him coming off of his oblique injury. I'm not going to harp much on Cookie. The offense is the issue here, and I'm going to stand by that. It doesn't look, if the Mets lose, say 7-6, okay, at least they made a valiant effort. Okay, I know that coming back from 6 runs is no easy task, but it's still the fucking Nationals. What would the Braves be doing in this series, huh? That's what I always say. It's like when the Mets did not sweep the Rockies in that 4-game set when they should have. Thankfully, the Rockies gave the Braves a little bit harder over time than they expected. Those were tight games, too. They dropped one of those to them, too. So it's not like the Rockies have only had tight games against the Mets over the past week and a half. They did the exact same thing against the Braves. But we all know the Braves have pistol whipped the Nationals left and right this year. And the Mets haven't swept the Nationals nearly as much as they should have. And now they dropped 2 or 3. I don't even, it's at a loss for words right now how I feel, guys. But let me get to the donation. We'll break down the game and I'll go there. I don't even know how hot-headed I want to get, because it's the fact that this feels exhausted. It really feels exhausting to see them perform like this. We've seen the Mets with their mediocre offense for literally the past month now. We've called it out every single time that we've seen it. They grinded out tight ball games. They were fortunate to win 2 or 3 against the Dodgers, and they ended up being the better team because the Dodgers kicked themselves in the foot thanks to Gavin Lux and his piss-poor defense, and the Mets just having enough more offense than what the Dodgers provided. That was huge. The Mets winning a season series against the Dodgers. That was huge. But to come out here and there's no excuses. There's literally 0 excuses to perform the way that the Mets did today. And I hate to be acting. There's nothing more that I hate to be acting than this way after the Mets have had the type of phenomenal year that they've had. 85 wins up is no slouch. But when you've had the Braves nipping at your heels, literally since day 1 this season, you've stayed afloat. God willing, you do the exact same, or at minimum, you teeter and you go back and forth for first, and that could be something where you get to the final matchup of the series against the Braves, the second to last series of the year. That could dictate who wins the division. And it wouldn't surprise me just from what we saw on display this series. And there's nothing that I hope more than what the Mets prove me wrong. I hate the fact that I have to be reacting this way this late in the season when the Mets have been in first all year. But there's rightful criticism that is deserved when a Mets club simply decides to not show up after game 1 of this series. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It was a pathetic performance, embarrassing, their most embarrassing series of the year. And they should use that embarrassment in their favor and wake the fuck up against the Pirates, okay? They need to do that. They absolutely, if they drop the series to the Pirates, I mean, then all fans are going to act like the sky's falling. And I don't blame them to an extent, regardless on what the final result of the season is. These are not teams that you can justify losing to. You can't even justify losing them earlier in the year, let alone now when you're finally getting on a roll here. It's not like you already have playoffs locked up for first at least, and you're starting to start more guys off the bench. It's not like that. This isn't like a Dodgers team where they dominate the regular season to the same extent that the Mets have. No, you can't do that. So even with all your starters in there, you don't step up to the plate. Inexcusable. Absolutely inexcusable. Thank you so much for the donation, Tim. I appreciate that. I'm extremely mad right now, Tower. This is unacceptable. We play the good teams well, and we lose to bad teams. And this is a story with the Mets that we've seen time and time again. The Mets have been doing well against bad teams this year. Let's not get it twisted. They've done really well against teams above them, above 500. The Mets have dominated this division. But this series in particular, it pisses me off because it gives me that deja vu of last year down the stretch against piss-poor teams. I don't expect it to be a collapse of that nature or anything like that. But we all know what started last year, and it was against the Pirates in Pittsburgh, no less. I was in attendance for that game when Diaz gave up the freaking grand slam on the expected batting average of 0.30 to freaking Jacob Stallings. And then you saw the injury to Lindor with his oblique. Taijuan Walker with that fluke play. He's pitching tomorrow, game 1 in Pittsburgh, no less. If you guys remember, you know. This was just inexcusable. I don't know. I really don't know what to say. So let me just break down this game now, guys, and then we'll get to some comments. I'm getting out of here. I don't want my day to get any more pissed off than what it is because I'm fuming right now. And if there's one upside to the Mets playing early tomorrow on Labor Day, it's the fact that if the Mets having a very strong win tomorrow, then we can finally breathe a little bit and hopefully they get themselves on a run. The Mets have 13 straight games against bottom feeder teams now before they face their next matchup of a team above 500, which is the Milwaukee Brewers. And the Brewers are nothing special. The Mets beat the Brewers when they were playing better baseball than what they are right now pre-deadline. No excuse. The Mets should, on paper, the Mets should win every single series this final month of September. They're not going to because they've already proven in their first series of the month that they couldn't even win the beat against the Nationals. But they need to make a statement here. It was a huge statement series against the Dodgers, and then they just let that get washed away. I mean, how does it feel for the Mets? I'm genuinely curious to go in there, to beat the Dodgers 2-3, to stay 3 games up in the division, and then for that to be eaten, and you're only up by 1 now because you dropped to the Nationals. You can understand if it's justified more. The Mets lost 2-3 against the Dodgers, and they say swept the Nationals or did whatever they did. But it's a flip-flop, and that's what makes it that much more frustrating. There's more justifications when you lose to a big bad team like the Dodgers or the Houston Astros that we've seen in the past that the Mets just were terrible against. But again, that was a different team then. Point is that stuff like this, it's hard to fathom. It's hard to understand how this was even allowed to happen. The Mets just simply didn't wake up. They did not wake up. They did not show up. But guys, the game started with Cookie Carrasco on the bump today against Eric Fetty, who the Mets have beaten up on so many times. Eric Fetty, entering tonight's start, guys, has had the worst OPS versus over a good amount of games for opposing batters, over 900. And the other bad guy was Chad Kuhl with over 1,000. Chad Kuhl had a solid start against the Mets when he was pitching for the Rockies. So it's like, what is going on here? So either way, you have Cookie back coming off of his oblique injury. Great to see Cookie back. Really bad outing for him today. But again, it went in hand with that McNeil error, which sucks as McNeil has robbed hits left and right this year. I'm not even griping about McNeil. It's just a really unfortunate play. Nothing went the Mets' way in this game in particular, let alone this series outside game 1. But still, I mean, I'm not here to make excuses or anything. Even with that being said, those are factors in the Mets' loss, but more than anything, the offense not showing up. Those were your biggest factors. So you see Lane Thomas, who killed the Mets this series. He's a Mets killer, gets on base with a double in the first. Then Garcia comes in with an RBI single already. It's the first inning, and the Nationals have a 1-0 lead on the Mets. We get to the second. Pete Alonso with a walk. Daniel Vogelbach with a single, who Vogie has continued to be underwhelming. All the Mets trade acquisitions have been beyond underwhelming. They've cooled down and then some since having a red-hot start. And I love Vogie, and I think that there's still promise to be had with Naquin and Ruff in selective times. But these guys everyone needs to step up. I can't even say and nitpick just one specific player here, guys. The majority of this lineup has not been consistent. Marte didn't show up at all in this series. We saw Lindor, who was looking great against the Dodgers, came back down to earth in this series. Pete Alonso. And there's one guy, and I hate to say that, and I hate to say this more than anything, but Pete Alonso is someone that has been just, Pete has not been locked in for literally a month now. Literally a month. And I love Pete, but you give me one solo bomb in this series, whoop the effing do, or 2-run bomb, whatever it was. That isn't going to move the needle for me. You should be dominating against these teams. But again, I can't just gripe about Pete because it goes for the entire offense here. It goes for the entire offense and for the pitching to a lesser degree. Vogie with a single, Jeff McNeil with an RBI sac fly, and Eddie Escobar, who had a very good series for the Mets. Very happy with what I've seen with Eduardo Escobar. He's been playing very nice now since coming off of the IL. Didn't have a good series against the Rockies, but he's been looking good. Had a good series against the Dodgers. Had a good series now against that we've seen, that being in the Nationals. But we need more. We get to the third. Thomas with a single. Garcia an error on by McNeil, which allowed them to be safe. Meneses, however you want to call it, with a single. Ruiz with a 2-run single, who I've been impressed with Keibert Ruiz. He had a big series. I won't forget the first series of the year for the Mets in D.C. I was in attendance for that first game. Max was pitching against the Nationals. Keibert had like 2 doubles that game. He's a solid little player for them. Hernandez with a walk. Vargas with 2-run single. The Nationals looked like a team that, again, has nothing to lose. You have guys battling for roster spots for next year. So they're going balls to the wall. They're really locked in right now. And the Mets look like a team that should be locked in. They should be grinding out every single game as if it's their last, and they're not. And when they don't do that, and you see what the Braves are doing, this is the difference between the two clubs. The Braves have literally pistol whipped every single bomb fear that they have played this year. There's no chance in hell the Braves would have dropped this series. The Braves only dropped like one series this year against a bottom feeder, if my memory's not mistaken. And like when they started to get hot, and that was against the Cubs. That ended like their 14-game winning streak. It was in Chicago. Braves fans were crying about the win. Whoop de effing do. Regardless, though, the Mets really want to make a statement. They need to. This is the perfect time to do it. And the fact that they didn't still just has me jaw dropped. I mean, like, I'm too exhausted. To get all tomato faced right now. I really am. I feel so drained by what the Mets did these past 24 hours, honestly. Underwhelmed is the best word to say it. Then you see Hernandez with a 2-run home run, his first effing home run of the year. Had 20 bombs last year, his first home run this year in over 500 play appearances. Finally got his first. Whoop-de-doo. 6th inning, Abrams with an infield single, Robles with a bunt single, Thomas with a walk, and then Garcia with a double play. Home then first. Nice turn by Pete there to get the runner out at home, and then the catcher to get it back to first, that being Inito. We get to the 7th, and you see how drained I am. Voit with a walk. Ruiz with a single. Williams turns a double play to end the inning. Trevor Williams gave up 2 earned runs of 4.1 innings, but Trevor isn't the problem today. He's not the problem. It's the Mets offense. Then in the 7th, once Harvey comes in, that being in Hunter Harvey, the reliever for Eric Fetty, the Mets look like they have something going finally. Jeff McNeil with a single, Canna with a single, and then the flukiest double play that you can imagine. Eduardo Escobar gets in the glove of Cesar Hernandez in the outfield. Cesar drops it, but because McNeil was told to stop, from the ump and not run, he told Canna not to run, and it led to a double play. Because for whatever reasons, the Nationals, the umps originally called it a catch. I don't know how in God's name they allowed that. It was a double play. Nito strikes out to end the inning. Then just pop up after pop up after pop up in the 7th, the 8th and the 9th, and then that was the Mets ball game. They had nothing in this one. Moto, thank you so much for the dono. I appreciate that. Do these crap teams just save all their venom for the Mets? Nats can't beat other last place teams, but they saw the Mets. This is the first series that the Mets have been slaughtered by the Nationals all year. So I'm not going to sit here and say that the Mets have been getting beat up by the Nats all year long. That's the farthest thing from the truth. We're talking about solely this series. But it's the Mets not performing. It's the Mets not performing. That's the issue here, okay? The Mets do not drop this series if they just play to their caliber. That's the thing. Give all the credit in the world to the Nationals with how they performed, but they're the fucking Nationals. This is not a team that sways me one bit. We all know this. There's a reason why they were 9-40 plus in the NL East entering today's game, or in the NL, in general, whatever. Yeah, in the NL East, I think it is. There's literally no excuses. There is zero excuses. Braves played narco when they announced the Mets loss at the stadium. The Braves are literally the pettiest fucking franchise I've seen all year. And there's nothing more that I want for the Mets to make sure that they win this division, more so because of the fact of how petty Braves fans, their announcers, all of them have been. They are the opposite of respectful, and I'm not going to give it to them. They've been a great team this year. But I'm not going to give them kind words. None of that. None. And that's separate from today's loss and this series loss. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I know that this is not a very appealing thing to watch for people live on replay. I'm not even going to bother to go through the Mets lineup from today or yesterday, just having nothing offensively. This just feels gutted. I truly just feel gutted. Man. I feel as lousy and as pathetic as the Mets offense was this series. I feel drained. I feel anemic. You might as well call me the Mets offense with how I'm reacting right now. I had fumes. When the Mets dropped that first series against the Dodgers that we did our postgame show on. Maybe I went a little overboard, but I was pissed because that was a game where the Mets had in their grasp. The Dodgers left 11 on base. You lose 4-3, and you only have your offense to blame against Heath Hembree and Jake Reed. That pissed me off so much because I'm like, how many opportunities against the Dodgers are you going to get them sleeping like that? The Mets went on to win the series, thankfully. But it's those close games against those big dogs that are so important that when you drop them just because you don't have enough going for you, it would change the direction a little bit of this series defeat. Maybe not much, but again, 2 runs in 2 days, 14 runs allowed. I'm not even that pissed at Cookie. I'm really not. It's his first start back. He'll be better. I know he will. I saw when he gave up that first run in the first, I had a feeling that this was not going to be a good ball game for him. That held true. I'm just not happy right now, guys. I'm really not happy. And this is a Mets team that, again, you've seen the type of season that this club has had, which further adds to my point that I've discussed with Nathan in the live chat and others. I see Darren and all my great members here in the live show. Thank you guys so much for being here. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button, folks. If you guys are somehow enjoying this post-game rant, maybe as not much of a rant, but rather just a gutted feeling. Because we've seen how well the Mets have been all year. Even with their struggles, they have legged through it. They have chugged through it. They have battled through the trenches and have come out victorious. Above 500. 5 to 10 games above 500 in these stretches. So to see them do all this, that just further adds to my initial point of how inexcusable and embarrassing this series loss was. This was not a Mets team that was free falling entering this series, where you could justify it. Okay, let's say hypothetically, this is like 2021 Mets. Completely understand it. Completely understand it. No, there's no way to understand this. They need to get their head out of their ass. Pete Alonso needs to act like the MVP that he was for a large portion of this year. Outside of Goldie, we know that Goldie's running away within the NL East. We're not getting on this tangent. Goldie has been the better player all year long. I'm saying for the Mets side of things, he has been our MVP for a large portion of the year, along with Lindor when he's had his great stretches. I mean, again, the offense runs through you, Pete. I know you're not the only one struggling. I know the DH has been anemic. I know that we've seen inconsistencies 1 through 9 this entire lineup, other than Jeff McNeil and Mark Canha for the most part. Eddie's been playing nice baseball. That's great. I'm happy for him. But the more Pete struggles, I just feel it's inevitable that the Mets are going to continue to have this lackluster offense. I've been dying for him to just finally get out of this rut that he's been in, but he's still in it. And we're in a month now. If you don't step up in this final month of the season, how am I supposed to know how you're going to perform come playoff time? Pete does feel the pressure to need to perform too much. I agree. He needs to go back to his loosey-goosey ways. He needs to try to get the vibes that he had back at the freaking home run derby, even though that he's laser focused. But, just having fun, being loose. Like, we need that Pete back right now. And I know that it might seem as a stretch to say that Pete Alonso dictates a lot for this offense, but he absolutely does. When he's batting fourth in your lineup every day, isn't getting more than one hit on a consistent level, that's going to throw off the rhythm, especially when he's the guy that's supposed to be driving in runs. Now, this series is a little different just because the Mets have struggled to get it. I shouldn't even say that, because the Mets did get multiple guys on base today. And that's been the story of their season. They're always getting guys on base. But when they can't drive them in like this, man, I mean, I'm very pissed. I'm not happy right now. I agree that guys need off days, Paul. I 100% agree with you. But here's the thing. When you have the Braves nipping at your heels all year long, you can understand the justification between why Buck has had these guys playing every day. And two, it has been as easy to have some guys get day off time. Once Gourmet's back, that's going to help a lot. Not as much with Alonso, but in general. But yeah, I agree. Pete can use a day off. And I don't think it would hurt one bit to have Alonso get a day off against Pittsburgh Pirates, have Darren Ruff start first, and see what that gives you. Even if it's against a righty, whoop the effing do. Ruff has proven that he can hit righties. At least barrel the ball, okay? We need to stop being so effing strategic about this platoon where guys never face a lefty or righty based on matchups. Because what we've quickly learned after their great start this second half, being acquired by the Mets and the Vogelbacks and the Ruffs and then the Naquins of the world, is that they're going to go through ruts regardless who they face. So I don't see the pain in sitting Alonso for at minimum one of the 3 games against the Pirates. How is that a negative? And Lindor doesn't want a day off. That's correct. And I think Lindor's going to be fine. The one thing that we can say about Francisco Lindor all year is that he has stepped up in the series that mattered most, where the spotlight's on, big key matchups against the Braves, Phillies, Dodgers, even, Yankees not as much for that Subway Series. For the most part, Lindor has really stepped up. And against the Marlins, he's murdered them all year long. He's their father. But he's a guy as well that should have been better in this series and wasn't. Marte, red hot going into this series and just completely cooled off. Everyone. Only McHits. Only McHits. I mean, Jeff went 2 for 2 today. Yeah, guys. I honestly think that's all I got. I'm sorry, guys. Let me give you guys a quick updates on the health stats of the Mets right now. I feel drained. I'm going to try to be live tomorrow, guys. I'm celebrating my grandfather's birthday once again tomorrow because tomorrow's his actual birthday. Yesterday, when I celebrated, it was a big surprise party for him with family and friends. So I'm going to be away from my house for a little bit, but I am going to try to go live tomorrow after the game. Or at minimum, do a recap off my phone, assuming that the Mets play well. If they don't, I'm going to lose it. I'm not even going to want to talk. Tuesday, I will not be available. I'm going to be away, going to be out of town on Tuesday, but I'll be back then Wednesday. So this week will be a little up and down with the content the first couple days, but then once we get to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, things will be a lot better. But let's give you guys the health updates right now, okay, before I get out of here. Trevor May placed on the IL. I put COVID IL, and I apologize. Maybe he doesn't have COVID. If he doesn't, then that's great. But when the Mets don't specifically emphasize what the injury is, it doesn't seem like it's an injury. He must have an illness of some sorts. I don't know what it is, but he's got something going there. They brought up Decoya Oka, who got himself a clean, like 0.2 innings yesterday. Pumps 101 on the gun. He's exciting. I'm interested to see what he can do for the Mets pen while he's here. I don't know how long May's going to be out. Trevor May, to say he's, been a liability for the Mets this year on an inconsistent standpoint is an understatement. Him, like many guys in this pen, either can't stay healthy or they're having health concerns. I know that these things happen that they can't control, but it's unfortunate. It sucks, especially when you're depending on these guys to a degree in the pen. Max Scherzer, who left yesterday's game after only 67 pitches because he said himself, I'm very happy that Max pulled himself out of the game, said I had fatigue on my left side. I didn't want to risk anything I left. Max is expected to make his next start, which is great. However, and this is something that Joe Sorala mentioned to me in two episodes ago on Bleav in Queens, guys. And that was, would it hurt to potentially have Max on like a short 10-day IL stint, Phantom IL, basically, to just get him fresh? And there's a positive and negative here because, one, I don't see the Mets doing it, but two, you would imagine that more rest would benefit Max, who, again, we're talking about fatigue with his side here. You can't have an oblique injury again here, or we're fucked. I mean, the Mets will go as far as Jake and Max takes them this year, along with their offense. But the thing is that Max has said in the past that him being thrown off with his rhythm down the stretch with the Dodgers last year, not pitching every fourth, fifth day as he's supposed to, threw him off, and that led him to his injury that he had in the postseason with like the arm fatigue, whatever it was. So I don't know exactly what is the best route to go with Max Scherzer, but what I do know is that it's imperative that the Mets make sure that this man is healthy for when it matters most. The Mets should be able to be fine with Max not starting every time of the turn of the rotation, as long as Max is okay and he heals up better that way. And if he doesn't, then okay, do what's best for him by having him pitch in a normal rhythm. I know it throws off pitchers, and he's one of them. So it's tricky to evaluate Max Scherzer right now, but it really feels like that this is, it was fluid. So that's some good news on Max. Yeah, like I'm awfully concerned with Max. He's just a guy that you need to make sure that, he's healthy when you need him down the stretch. That's most important for me. But guys, that's going to do it for the post-game show recap. Sorry I didn't get as hot-headed as maybe I was kind of initially planning to be. I'm just really bothered. I'm just really, really bothered. And I really hope that the Mets can step up because they've proven time and time again that they can and will, as long as they perform to the caliber that they're supposed to against these lesser teams. I was hoping the Mets would go 12-4 over their 16-game stretch. Not a world where I see that happens. Anthony Recker said the Mets will go 10-6 and they'll still be fine. Maybe that's a more likely scenario. Regardless, the Mets need to make sure that they're well over 500 over this next 13 games against teams below 500. And if they don't, if they teeter around 500, then they're more than likely going to be out of first at that point. And it could be one of those things where it comes down to that Braves series, the second to last series of the year, on who wins the division. Hopefully the Mets can make a statement and avoid that to happen. But right now, I don't blame any Mets fan for being bothered by the lack of offense and the lack of reliability that they've had in either their pen with decision-making. And Cookie, again, I'm not going to gripe much about because, again, it was his first start back. It's okay that he wasn't stellar. The Mets offense still should have put up a valiant effort today, and they simply didn't. But with that being said, guys, thank you all so much for watching, listening. I love you guys all to death. I hate that I have to look as drained and be as bummed out about this about 85-win Mets right now. But if you watch the past two games, you can understand it's justified. So I'll see you guys hopefully tomorrow after hopefully a good game in Pittsburgh for the Mets. That's a 12:35 p.m. Eastern time game on Labor Day. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Smash those buttons. I'll see you guys all again tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day and enjoy your prolonged weekend. Everyone that I know has off for the holiday weekend. Definitely enjoy it and definitely try to put this one in the back burner and hope that the Mets make us forget about this National Series as quick as possible. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a great one.